Good morning. Please find your seats and prepare for this morning's service. So pleased to see you all. To those of you here with us in the sanctuary, please be advised that the service is being streamed on YouTube. To those of you watching this streamed service, we're glad to have you watching, but would of course rather have you here with us in person. Also, let me remind you that we have a pre- and post-service Zoom event, which also runs the YouTube stream of the service. Please make sure you read the announcements in your printed order of service. Also, and especially, be sure to read the weekly events that are emailed to you each Thursday, as well as the unigram and the website. I urge you to keep our website, your website, open as a tab on your internet browser so you can keep up with what's happening. Please practice social distancing and mask wearing per board-approved guidelines. Please do not take chances. We don't want anybody to get sick or even worse. We do not want to lose anyone. A final announcement that our partner church card signing will be outside. These are the Christmas cards that we sent to our partner church in Transylvania, is that right? Transylvania? Each Christmas. We are truly international. Today's flowers are donated by Linda McLeod in memory of her mother's birthday. Miriam Bixby Bonney was born October 24th, 1907, and died November 30th, 1990. Like the flowers, Miriam was a bright and colorful person as she lived her life loving her 7 children, 17 grandchildren, and 34 great-grandchildren. Her door was always open to any personal or animal looking for a home. And now let us center ourselves for today's service and remember to silence all electronic devices as we listen to the prelude, and I'd like to introduce our guest musician. Steve Sloan is adjunct faculty at USC Aiken, where he teaches applied guitar and introduction to music lecture classes. Steve is also the guitar instructor for the Suzuki Academy of Columbia, where his students begin lessons between the ages of 4 and 7. In 2018, Steve released his first solo album, A Peaceful Escape, which is a relaxing collection of music that gives the listener a moment to escape. It is available on all music streaming services, and CDs can be purchased from stevesloanguitar.com. And Steve will introduce each of the pieces he's going to play. Steve.
Good morning, and thank you for welcoming me to the UU Columbia. The first piece I'm going to be playing is a piece by Brazilian composer João Pernambuco, and he lived from 1883 to 1947. And this piece is in the style of the Brazilian choro, which is a music that has its roots as a blend of Western classical music and African rhythms and African styles. So enjoy this piece by João Pernambuco called The Sounds of Bells.
Please stand and join me in the congregational covenant as found in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community. Thus do we covenant with one another. Please be seated. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Columbia. My name is Jessica Cross, and I am your service leader of the day. Our minister is the Reverend Stephen Robinson, and on those Sundays when Stephen is not in the pulpit, we present a variety of qualified and interesting speakers from this congregation or from recognized guests from the wider community. Unitarian Universalism is a diverse and non-creedal religion. We are a covenantal religion, which means that we don't have to believe the same in order to treat each other with respect, equity, compassion, and dignity. Our community is based on deeds, not creeds. As Unitarian Universalists, we side with love, embracing all people, regardless of age, color, race, socioeconomic status, physical ability, or religious background. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we also embrace LGBTQ individuals. We encourage everyone to wear name tags so that we may know each other better. Board members wear green name tags, and they always welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions, especially suggestions. Would the members of our Board of Trustees please stand now so that we may recognize them and you may see who they are. Very good. Thank you. At this time, we would like to recognize any guests or visitors who are with us today. If you are willing and able, please rise and share with us your name and where you are from. Or if you have guests with you, please feel free to introduce them, but please wait for the microphone, which Richard will bring round. Are there any guests today who would feel comfortable? Very good.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth West. I'm originally from Tennessee, but I moved here to study at the University of South Carolina, so.
Yeah.
Very good. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Glad to have you.
Any other brave souls?
Yeah, don't want to miss anybody.
No.
Any other brave souls?
We don't
Jeff?
seem to have any other brave souls. How about a timid soul who would like to practice being a brave soul? No, we don't seem to have any of those either. Okay. That's fine.
Anybody who hasn't been here for a while that would like to introduce themselves? Anybody? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Richard. So I decided I would be the chalice lighter for today, since I was given unlimited power over chalice lighting. It's one of the perks of being your service leader. Almost all religious services recognize that there needs to be a boundary between the sacred and the profane. And our lighting of our chalice is our way of acknowledging that we have sort of left the everyday world and are now entering into a new kind of space. And we'll be in that space until the chalice is extinguished. Spirit of light and life, come unto us. Our opening words this morning are from Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. And this is the time for our story of all ages. Is that right? Yep. Things are confused. The order of service is slightly different, but I promise you we'll get to everything. And a story for all ages is not for children, it's for people of all ages. And I'm going to stay up here to, say a little something so that people who are streaming in can see me. And this is a story from the Sufi tradition, which features the Mullah Nasruddin. And the Mullah Nasruddin is a wise fool. Many cultures also, as they separate the sacred and profane, also will often allow truth-telling in the guise of foolishness. Court jesters are an example. There are others. So the Mullah Nasruddin is out in front of his house where there's light, and he's just scrabbling around, and he is just looking everywhere. And so one of his neighbors comes up and says, "Mullah, what's the problem?" And Nasruddin says, "I lost my keys, and I can't find them." And the neighbor helps him looking around, and he says, "Mullah, are you sure you dropped them here?" And Nasruddin says, "Oh, no, they're not here. I think I dropped them in the backyard, but this is where the light is." So the moral of the story is that if we only stay in our comfort zones, if we only go with what we already know, we're never going to find our keys. This is the time in our service for candles of community, because we are a community, and this is one of the many ways that we acknowledge that and reinforce that. If you have a significant personal joy, sorrow, or concern you would like to have shared from this pulpit, please phone or email Andrea, our administrator, by noon Friday. If you would like to speak for yourself, before the service begins, pick up one of the candles in the basket on the entry table and come forward to speak briefly when requested. For those of you streaming, if you would like to have a candle lit, please text or email Andrea, our administrator, to have it read from this service. And I was not handed any joys or concerns, so we will go to those who have taken a candle. So those who would like to express a joy or concern, please stand, and I will motion you to come forward.
Good morning. Everyone should know me by now. I'm Bruce. I light this candle for myself and Nick especially. There's a lot of trying times, been for a year now, with cancer, and most leukemia is what he actually has. Acute myeloid myeloblastic leukemia, which is really, really one of the worst of leukemias. He's went through about 4 months, the beginning of the year and last year, of the IV chemo, which I call the bad chemo. They put him in remission for a short time. And of course, everyone knows it's back. And that's what they're trying to do now, is put him back in remission with IV chemo and home chemotherapy pills. It's been up and down and a bad struggle for us both. But we appreciate everything you do. And as I said already, with a sister's help, I'm kind of dumb when it comes to things like GoFundMe. And a lot of people's helped. And GoFundMe tells me to share it on different platforms. I tried to make an Instagram, and I don't think I did it right. But if anybody could share it on other platforms, we'd appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Tom Clements, and I've got a concern, but just one quick joy. The Pride Float was great on Friday night. Connie and Kevin helped organize it. Jim and Jason were there, and a lot of other people. Thank you so much. The signage was beautiful. You may have seen the little clip that was on one of the TV stations, but it was a lot of fun. It was a very sociable event. So if we do it next year, I would encourage you to come just to interact with other people. But I have a concern, and I'm kind of distracted on my phone. In 1980, I met a reporter at the Athens Banner-Herald when I had moved back there after grad school, and she was now 86 years old, just lost her husband 2 years ago and just got settled into a retirement community. And I talked to her a couple of weeks ago. She was very happy. On Monday, she got hit by a forklift at the retirement community, which devastated the young man driving it. Is now in, she had a traumatic brain injury, and just this morning got put into hospice. She hasn't been responsive at all. And anyway, thinking of Conley.
So sorry.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Shillington Perez. This is just a quick candle of joy because my dear friend and all of you that love her so much, Andrea Dudik's birthday is tomorrow. She didn't tell me to say this to anybody, so just want to put some lovely good vibes going her way because she's the one who puts together our marvelous programs every week, does so much for us. We don't see her often in the congregation. She's raising 2 kids, of course, with her dear husband, Brian. But I just love her so much, and I just want to, I know you do too, so lovely vibes going her way, please.
Anyone else who would like to share a joy or concern? We'll light one last candle for those joys and concerns so tender that they remain in our hearts. To ponder what we've heard and our own inner thoughts, let's pause for a moment of silent meditation. This congregation contributes to Share the Plate, where half of our cash collection each Sunday goes to local charities, a way for us to give back to the community we live in. And this month's Share the Plate recipient is Cotton Branch Farm Sanctuary. If contributing by check, please write Share the Plate on the memo line, or you may also make an online contribution. Those of you on streaming may certainly contribute. You will find the link on the UUCC website, uucolumbia.org. Will the ushers please come forward? And Steve, if you will announce what you're doing?
Yes. The piece I'll be playing for the offertory is by composer Hector Villa-Lobos, who lived from 1887 to 1959, a very well-known composer of Brazilian art music. And he published he published a lot of guitar music, and in 1940 published a set of 5 preludes for guitar that I'll be playing number 4 for you today, and is subtitled Homage to the Brazilian Indian.
Lovely, thank you, thank you. We receive these gifts with gratitude and appreciation, as it demonstrates that we are truly a giving community. And now the main event. Ed Madden is a professor of English at the University of South Carolina and the interim director of the Women's and Gender Studies program. In 2015, he was named Poet Laureate for the City of Columbia. In 2019-2020, he spent 2 months in Bahia, Brazil, on an artist residency at the Instituto Sacatar in Itaparica. In 2019, and then he wrote about time and memory where he encountered Afro-Brazilian religions. And he will tell us sort of what came out of that for him personally. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. Ed.
First, I want to say thank you to Judy Turnipseed and to Jessica for asking me to be here. I've had the privilege and the honor of being your post-Pride speaker a couple times over the course of the 20-something years I've lived here, so it's kind of nice that this coincided with Pride. I wrote a lot while I was there, and so I'm glad to have the opportunity to just tell you this particular moment from my time in Brazil. I could hear Marina talking in the small hallway off of the main room, saying something about a difficult relationship. I felt awkward that I could hear her. I could barely hear Ana Maria, the Mãe de Santo, Mother of Saints. Their conversation was threaded with Laura's voice, measured, careful. She had agreed to be our translator. I tried not to listen to them. I looked around the room. There were large paintings of the orishas, the African deities, on the walls. The deep blue shutters on the windows were all open. They let in the light, but not the breeze. There was no breeze. I start here, just outside the room where Marina is talking, because this is an essay about difficult relationships, about encounters and translations, about the gods around me on the walls of that room. On the wall across from me was Oshosi, the hunter with his green robes and bow, arrow pointed at the sill of the open window beside him, a green plume in his hat. There was a flat screen television on a small table in front of him. The room, a ceremonial space, was otherwise mostly empty, a couple of sagging sofas against the wall. On the other side of the window from Oshosi was Omalu, who looked like a haystack. Most of the orishas looked like cartoon superheroes. Each had a weapon or a prop, a knife, a mirror, or an axe. On the wall behind me, as if standing on the back of the old sofa I was sitting on, was Ogum in blue, waving a large machete above my head. Just beyond him, Jango in red, raising his double-headed axe, and he's the one on the cover of the program today, Jango. The staff at Sacatar, the Arts Institute, where we had just begun our 2-month residencies, urged us to immerse ourselves in the local culture. Increased intercultural understanding was part of the mission, cross-cultural understanding through creative practice. There were 6 of us from Brazil, Greece, Spain, and the States. Only 2 of us were writers. As a group, we had attended a candomblé ceremony not long after arriving on the island of Itaparica for the residency. Itaparica lies at the entrance of the Bay of All Saints, just across from the port city of Salvador, the largest city in the Brazilian state of Bahia. Before the ceremony began, Chico told us that we were not allowed to take photos. There would be a break later in the ceremony after the manifestations of the orishas, and we could leave then, though the ceremony would continue into the morning. Now, I took my little notebook everywhere. I asked if it would be okay to take notes. No, he shook his head. Write it here, he said, tapping his head to make sure that I understood. Most of the group sat on the front row in a loose semicircle of folding chairs drawn around the ceremonial space. I sat behind them. Even though we were guests of Chico, who worked at the Institute, I felt self-conscious as an outsider, aware that I was one of only 2 white men in the room. And maybe too, I was a little nervous. Taylor had told us stories about other visitors who were possessed by the gods, taken over by orishas during the ceremony, unwanted and unprepared. Chico's father-in-law was the Pai de Santo of this house. The Pai, or father, would manifest as Iansá, female deity of wind and storm, intense feeling. She entered in a shower of flower petals, pounding drums, flashing lights, a beaded veil across her face, a swirl of purple taffeta like a dervish in a bad prom dress, lifting her cymbals, a whisk and a small machete. Marina had told us that she had been to Bahia before, that she already knew her Orisha was Iansa. And during the ceremony, Iansa stopped in front of her, grabbed her head, and leaned in to look in her eyes. And I'll just have to say, repeatedly in these encounters, there were these moments that were just uncanny. You think, how did this happen? How did Iansa know that Marina was hers? I could only hear Marina's side of the story, the accusations, the hurt, the way it often is with stories like these. We only know one side of things. I couldn't hear Ana Maria or Laura. A scrawny gray cat wandered in the building, looked around, and walked back out. I walked out behind it, stood in the shade and slight breeze in front of the building, the Ile Ashe Omim Togum, one of several houses of worship on the island for Candomblé, the syncretic Afro-Brazilian religion in which the Yoruban deities have Catholic cognates. In other parts of the Americas, it was said, syncretic religions allowed enslaved Africans to disguise prohibited religious practices. They might worship Yemanja, the deity of the ocean, but their masters all thought that they were devoted to the Virgin Mary. Here, I was beginning to understand the history was a little different. Catholic saints seem less disguises for African religious practices and deities than just different manifestations. In front of the building, there was a cement and brick structure that looked like an open oven. Inside it, a ceramic vessel, a vaguely human metal figure. In the thick ash across the bottom, I thought I could see a small bird skull. Maybe it was an altar. And I will say I later found out it was the altar to Eshu, who is the trickster figure. Jessica, thinking about your reading earlier, he's the trick, and he's always the one you offer offerings to first, because he's the deity of the crossroads, the deity of the open door. So he opens the passage between this world and that of the gods. But he's also outside. He can't be inside because he would just fuck things up with his trickster stuff in the middle of the space. So he's always outside and first, so we can take care of him and then go to the real stuff. When we arrived, Ana Maria had met us at the door, conferred with the taxi driver. She wore a blue lace head wrap, a white lace blouse, and a full Bahian skirt covered in pink and yellow figures that seemed to be both flower and fish, plumes of fish blooming among the dark blue palm leaves on a sky blue field. She told us that she was the new mother of the house, the Mãe de Santo. The previous mother of the house, her own mother, had passed away, she said, and then Oshosi, the hunter, came to her. There were to be no ceremonies in the house for 1 year after the death of her mother, but she still offered readings, the Jogarbuzios, reading of the cowrie shells, and this was the reason that Marina and I were there. The air was so still. The last time I had seen my own mother was almost 4 years before this, not long after I had published a book about my father's death. I had sent her a copy. It was dedicated to her. The book tells a story about the 3 months I lived with them, helping with his home hospice care as he was dying of pancreatic cancer. During that difficult time, we never spoke about the decade that we didn't talk to one another, about their reactions to my coming out, the letters back and forth, the shame, the anger. I stopped by her house when I was in Arkansas to give a couple of poetry readings. Bert, my husband, and I pulled off the gravel road into the yard where my uncle's house had burned down. That was years after he had moved out, after a hired hand on the farm had moved in. I don't know if anyone was living there when it burned down. I was away in college. Now it was just a weedy parking space for tractors. My mom's house was a half-mile down the road on the horizon, beside a ditch that dredged a boundary through the fields. We could see it. I knew that she wouldn't open the door if Bert were with me, so he was going to wait there, sit on a big tractor tire and read a book. There was a scatter of daffodils, Easter flowers we called them when I was growing up. I hacked out a bunch with my keys to give her a gesture. I knocked at the back door. I once had a key. I didn't anymore. I knew she was there. The car was there. The fireplace was going. There was smoke. I knocked again. The field beside the house was all wind and stubble. I walked around to the front porch, the door for strangers and salesmen. I rang the bell. I could hear the television. No answer. I knocked. Could she not hear me? She opened the door and she was crying. She did not ask me in. I handed her the flowers and she put them on the foyer table just behind the door. My father was her world, she said. She told me to leave before she said something she would regret, and she shut the door. Well, that was quick, Bert said when he got in the car when I pulled up. He could see, though, that I was crying. He held my hand as we drove away, quiet, back the way we'd come, through the fields, the woods, across the old bridge. I wondered what she did with the flowers. I wondered what she would have said. I wish she had said it. I wish she had said it, because what she didn't say keeps getting bigger and darker. When I heard Marina laughing in the main room, her reading over, I walked back in, ready. We were told to be prepared with burning questions. I had worn a white shirt out of respect. I stood inside the door as Ana Maria and Marina said their goodbyes. Marina called her taxi. I walked across the room to a small door beside Omalu, the haystack. There was a small step down. I thought the main room was hot, but I walked into a hallway that felt like a sauna. Ana Maria gestured me to sit in a chair at a small table, and she sat across from me. Laura sat in a chair just beside, but slightly behind me, just out of sight. There was a candle burning on a white saucer and a mound of large beaded necklaces like a coil of snakes in a circle on the table, forming a basket to contain the throwing of the shells. I placed my donation in the circle as I had been told to do. Ana Maria handed me a notebook, asked me to write my full name and the date of my birth. I wrote it out, Norman Edward Madden, Jr., Norman, my father's namesake, 9/13/1963. I explained that I go by Ed, or Edgy. I loved the way they said it there, the D like a J and that soft vowel at the end, Edgy. Laura told her that it was my first reading and that I wanted to know my Orisha, my spirit. Ana Maria chanted quietly as she rubbed the shells in her hand for the first question, who is my Orisha? She rubbed them together for a long time, threw them, then moved some of the edges around the circle of the necklaces, moved some to the edges of the circle of the necklaces, gathered up the others, threw them again and once again. I later learned that the shells represent your ancestors, that how they land tells her if they are living or dead, but I didn't know that then. All I knew was the heat and the smell of incense and the soft murmur of her voice and the clack of the shells in her hands and the way they tumbled onto the table, the way she would lean in and look at them as she moved them around and separated them and then gathered them back up. Jango, she said. Jango is the Orisha that guides you. He is fire, she said. He is the thunder and lightning. He is justice. I remembered the god in red in the big room, the double-headed axe. I asked if he is a good Orisha for a writer, and she smiled as if I had said something terribly naive or funny. Laura translated. Jango is also San Geronimo, Saint Jerome. He always carries his pen and a book. Ana Maria rubbed the shells again and threw them. She said, my second Orisha, the companion, is Oshun, Orisha of the sweet waters. Sweet waters? Laura explained the rivers and fresh water, as Yemanja is the sea, the salt water. Ana Maria continued, women who want children make offerings to Oshun. She is fertility. She is calming. She calms Jango, she said. You are balanced. You are fire and water. The water calms your fire. The Orishas balance you. She asked if I had other questions. I asked, will my mother change? She asked Laura for more information. I said, I do not feel welcome in her house. She does not answer my phone calls. We do not speak. I said that we do not talk to each other because I am gay. How can you change what God gave you? She asked. I said I felt like giving up on her, giving up on my family. I was tired of the difficulty. Ana Maria became animated, almost angry. Now desista, she repeated. It was a command, do not give up. It will not happen now, she said. It may be a long time, but she will change. Laura translated each statement carefully. She said that someday you will come back and you will tell her how your mother hugged you, Laura said. I was not sure what to say. She will look forward to seeing you again and hearing you tell her that this is true. My time was not up. Do you want to ask her something else? I asked if she could tell me anything about my father who had died. She looked surprised. But he is here, she said, gesturing toward the shells. Then she looked to a space at my left shoulder and said something else. I looked at Laura. She said he walks with you. Ella anda con voce. Ana Maria looked at me, then looked directly at the empty space beside me. The first Christmas that I didn't go home was difficult. The slip in my mailbox at the university had said, "There's a box for me in the main office," but the office was already closed. The hallway was dark, even though a few lights were on. There was a long church pew on the wall across from the elevators under the directory of faculty offices. The slip did not say where the box was from or from whom, just that there was a box and that I could pick it up during regular office hours Monday through Friday. It was January. It was Friday after 5. The semester was starting up again, and I was hopeful. I recognized my father's handwriting on the box when I got by the office on Monday. I grabbed the scissors on the counter. "Something from home?" the office director smiled across the room. The office windows faced south, and the room was filled with a cold brightness. I cut through the tape. There were packages wrapped in Christmas paper. I was surprised to see that my mom had used the same wrapping paper that I did. Then I saw the tag on the top. I was confused for a moment. "To Dad from Ed." I closed the box and left the office before anyone could ask. Upstairs in my office, I pulled out the packages and opened them. A flannel shirt and gloves for my dad, a scarf for my mom. My office was cold. I slipped the gloves on. Underneath it all, there was a book for Christian parents that I had hoped might help them understand. There was a Post-it note on the cover, and again I recognized my father's handwriting. "Don't send us any more pagan literature." Pagan, meaning not Christian, meaning not like us. In the book of Romans, homosexuality is a symptom of those who worship created things rather than the Creator. They change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man and to birds and beasts and creeping things. So God gave up on them and left them to their vile affections, men burning in lust for one another, queers, idolaters, pagans. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells the story of a lost sheep, how the shepherd rejoices more in the one that had been lost and was then found than in the 99 that never strayed. But he adds that if your brother sins and refuses to listen to you, if he won't return to the church, you should rebuke him with witnesses, and if he won't listen to them either, tell the church, and let him be unto thee as an heathen man, or as other versions put it, let him be to you like a pagan. Treat him like a pagan, shun him. Whatever you bind on earth, Jesus explains, will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose or sever on earth will be severed in heaven. When I first walked into the room with Ana Maria, I was drawn to Amalu. At dinner, someone had said inaccurately that he is the Orisha of agriculture, and I imagined I could thus be connected to my past on the family farm. Omalu is the father of the earth. He carries a whisk like Iansa and a ceramic vessel. On the wall of Ileashe Omintogum, he lifted a brown vessel which held a single yellow flower. I later learned that he is covered with raffia, not grasses or grain, as I had assumed, and that he is covered because he is hideous, deformed. He is the Orisha of smallpox and infectious diseases, which he cannot heal but does control, and his body is covered with sores. He is wounded, he is lonely, he has no companion. He is Saint Lazarus, the beggar whose sores the dogs licked. Nana, the great mother, his mother, abandoned him on the shore because he was so hideous to her, and Yemanja soothed his sores with seawater and covered his ugliness with raffia. When Ana Maria and I walked back into the main room, I told her that I had wondered if I might be of Omalu. She asked why. Because I grew up on a farm. She shook her head. She took me to the back wall to see a small statue of Saint Jerome, a book on his lap, a pen in his hand. I told her I was surprised to be also of Oshun, the woman in gold beside Jango on the far wall, holding up her gold mirror. Does a river not run through your father's farm? She asked. Oshun is the river. At lunch in the village of Katu the week before this with Augusto, the Institute's program manager, and his friend Fabio, two Brazilian gay men who had taken me under their wing, Fabio told me that he grew up Catholic, but that if he were to choose a religion now, it would be candomblé. They do not care about your sexuality, he said. It's not important. And the gods, the entities, are part of nature, he said. They are the green leaves and the water. Everything is connected, he said. This appeals to me. He also told me that in Camassari, armed evangelical Christians burned down a terreiro yard, the word they use for the house of worship, the sacred ground. And in Algoinhas, they wrote, "Fora Satanas," out Satan, on the walls of the temple. Augusto said that there is an increasing hostility on the island among the Christian evangelicals toward the African religions. And on the internet, a mission group has called the island of Itaparica a land of spirits and devils, idolaters, pagans. When I got back to the house after the reading, Augusto stopped me near the gate to ask what I had learned. I told him that I had learned I was of Jango and Oshun. He smiled, "These are good." I admitted my cynicism, aware that I was a white tourist willing to pay the full donation. "No," he said, "this is important. They wouldn't do that." I told him that she demanded I not give up on my mother, now deshista. Sometimes the reading is not about predicting the future, he said, as much as it is about telling you to do what your heart says you should do. Now deshista was more direction than premonition. We were standing outside the Institute office under a large mango. The bricks would soon enough be littered with yellow fruit. I was looking at my little notepad where I had scribbled notes furiously in the taxi on the way back, trying to make sure that I could remember it all. And I thought of Jerome leaning over his book. I told him what happened at the end when I asked about my father. She said that he was there, that he was with me. She looked at me like he was sitting right beside me. Unflappable Augusto was surprised. "This is unusual," he said. He paused and then said, "He must go with you." That's what she said, that my father walks with me. Laura and I waited outside with Ana Maria for our taxi. We heard a bird in the tree above us. I pointed up, said it was a dove, a pomba. "No," Laura shook her head, and I didn't know if I had said the wrong word or misidentified the bird. It sounded like the mourning doves that live in the pines above my yard back home in Colombia. I thought about what we do when we encounter different people, different religions, different cultures. Do we look for the similarities and the analogies? Do we respect the differences? Do we disavow and shun what we do not understand? I mimicked the call. "Woohoo!" "Sim," Ana Maria said. "Yes, pomba." But she said they call it fogo-apagu for its call. It was the same thing but had a different name. Where I heard mourning, loss, sadness, she heard something else. She mimicked the call, extending the final O. "Fogo-apagu." "The fire is out," Laura said. "Fogo-apagu" means the fire is out. The small altar filled with ash was only a few feet away from us. I learned later that it is for the first offerings to Eshu, the messenger Orisha, spirit of the crossroads, opener of doors. Though there were no ceremonies in this house for the year, there was a new mother, and it would be used again. Dance and light and spirits and community would fill the place again. Oshosi would appear in his green robes with his bow and arrow. There might be a break for those who had to leave, but those ceremonies would go on into the morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely and very thought-provoking for all of us. Our closing music.
My turn?
Your turn. And an introduction, please.
Yeah, indeed, yes. So I just want to, that was great, by the way. I want to take a moment to say thank you to especially Anna Hamilton for inviting me to come and play this morning. It's truly a pleasure just to be here this morning with you all. And the final piece I'm going to play for you is a piece that is on my album titled A Peaceful Escape, which looks like this. And I have some here if you'd like to purchase one afterward. But you can also listen on any streaming service. So the piece is called Pasaje Abierto, and it's from a living composer named Eden Solis, and he's from Costa Rica. And the piece actually has two movements. It has a slow prelude and a fast dance, but I'm only going to play for you the fast dance, or danza. And Pasaje Abierto translates to something as open passageway or open ticket, but mostly open passageway.
Thank you, just wonderful. Our closing words come from the Buddhist Metta Sutta. Metta means benevolence, friendship, sometimes translated as loving kindness. Let us cultivate boundless goodwill. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none in anger or ill will wish another harm. Even as a mother watches over her child, so with boundless mind should one cherish all living beings, radiating friendliness over the whole world, above, below, and all around without limit. Before I extinguish the chalice, thus ending our sacred space, I would like to thank our speaker, Ed, our musician, Steve, David Roof, who makes all of this possible in so many ways, and of course, all of you, because without you, what would we have? An empty building. Please remember that we can socialize outside, but unfortunately not really in the building, that we have cards outside, Christmas cards to sign for our partner church in Transylvania. Be well.